A millionaire failed 20 blind dates until a poor miner girl was the only one who agreed. This is where everything begins. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. Ethan Hale sat alone inside a tiny roadside diner, the kind with flickering neon lights and chipped red booths. The air smelled like burnt coffee and fried eggs, a far cry from the polished boardrooms where he usually lived his life. Tonight he was not the billionaire CEO of Hale Industries. Tonight he was just Ethan, a man who had failed 20 blind dates in a row. 20. Not because he was rude or strange, but because every woman eventually asked the same question. So, how much do you make? And when Ethan, still undercover, answered with a modest number, their smiles faded, their interest cooled, and the evening ended faster than it began. The sting of rejection did not crush him. What hurt was the pattern, the predictability, the feeling that nobody cared about the man behind the money. He rubbed his temples and looked at the empty seat across from him, waiting for date number 21. His friends had insisted he try one last time. One more, they said. One day the right person will sit down. He had stopped believing that. But then the diner door swung open, letting in a burst of cold night air and the faint smell of coal dust. A young woman stepped inside, brushing soot from her sleeves. Her jeans were faded, her boots worn from long shifts underground. Her name was Ava, though he did not know it yet. She scanned the room, spotted him, and hesitated only a second before walking over. "Hi," she said gently. "You are Ethan, right? Sorry I am late. Our shift at the mine ran over." Her voice held no judgment, no calculation, no envy, just honesty, just life. Ethan blinked, surprised. Most women dressed for blind dates like they were entering a fashion show. Ava came straight from work, hair still damp from the mist outside, cheeks flushed from the cold. "You work in the nearby mine?" he asked. She nodded, sliding into the booth with a small, hopeful smile. "Yes, it is not glamorous, but it pays enough to help my little brother stay in school. Anyway," she shrugged, "people should show up as who they are, right?" A strange warmth broke inside Ethan's chest. He had not heard something that genuine in a long time. Ava looked at him closely, as if reading his silence. "I just need one thing from you," she said. "Do not lie about who you are. I do not care if you make a lot or a little. Just be real with me." Ethan swallowed hard. If only she knew how deeply those words cut, and how afraid he was to tell the truth. And as the waitress refilled their glasses, Ethan realized something he had not felt in months. This date was not like the others. Ethan did not expect the conversation to flow as easily as it did. Ava spoke with the kind of honesty that had become rare in his world, and every sentence she shared pulled him a little further away from the life he was hiding. She told him about the early morning shifts at the mine, the heavy boots, the endless dust, and the small victories that kept her going. She laughed about how her lunch always tasted like coal, no matter how sealed the container was, and how her coworkers teased her for bringing the same metal lunchbox her mother once carried. Ethan found himself watching the way her eyes lit up when she talked about her younger brother. She worked 2 shifts to support his school fees, and she said it with pride, not resentment. There was no self-pity in her voice, only determination. For the first time in many months, Ethan forgot to play a role. He forgot to measure his words, or calculate what people wanted from him. Ava did not ask about his salary, his car, or where he lived. She asked about simple things, like what he cooked when he was too tired to order food, or whether he preferred sunrises or sunsets. Questions that made him feel like a person, not a wallet. When the waitress returned with their drinks, Ava thanked her with genuine gratitude. Ethan noticed the small kindness and tucked the feeling away. Ava's world was rough, but she carried gentle habits. It disarmed him. Ava reached into her bag and placed a small object on the table, a rough, shimmering mineral stone. "This one is from today's shift," she said. "Some people just toss them aside, but I like keeping the ones that shine under the work lights. I guess it reminds me that good things can come out of hard places." Ethan picked up the stone, turning it between his fingers. It was cool, uneven, real. You keep these? He asked. Only the ones that feel lucky, she said with a shy laugh. Maybe this one is for you. After 20 terrible dates, I think you deserve a win. Her words embarrassed him in a way he did not expect. She did not know the real reason all those dates had gone wrong. She did not know why he hid his identity. She did not know the weight he carried. Still, she sat across from him without judgment. He placed the stone back carefully, almost reverently. Thank you, Ava, he said. Really. Their meals arrived, simple diner plates with eggs, toast, and hash browns. Ethan normally avoided heavy food, but tonight he welcomed the warmth. Ava bowed her head slightly, murmuring a quiet blessing before eating. Ethan watched, moved by the sincerity of such a small moment. As they ate, Ava shared stories from the mine, the long tunnels, the camaraderie, the jokes workers made to pass the hours. Her hands gestured animatedly. Her laughter filled the booth. Her positivity surprised him, especially knowing how difficult her life must be. Ethan asked, "Do you ever get scared down there?" "All the time," she answered honestly. "But fear does not stop me from doing what I need to do. My brother depends on me. That keeps me going." Her courage hit something deep inside him. He had been hiding from the truth, hiding from who he was, afraid of being used again, afraid of being seen. She faced danger every day and did not flinch. When the bill arrived, Ava immediately reached for it. "Let us split it," she said. "I do not let strangers buy my meals. Makes the whole date feel like a transaction." Ethan blinked, stunned. Nobody had ever said that to him. He nodded slowly. "All right, let us split it." Outside, the night air was cold and sharp. Ava pulled her thin jacket tighter. Ethan felt an instinctive urge to offer her his coat, but he stopped himself. He could not reveal anything yet. Not here, not now. Instead, he walked her to the dusty pickup truck parked by the edge of the road. Ava paused before getting in. "Ethan," she said softly, "I had a good time. If you want to meet again, I would not mind. No conditions, no tests, no subtle fishing for wealth, just a simple yes." Ethan felt something shift inside him, a quiet, unfamiliar hope he had almost forgotten how to feel. "I would like that," he said. Ava smiled, started the engine and drove into the dark. Ethan stood alone in the gravel lot, the little mineral stone in his hand catching the glow of the diner lights, and he knew this unexpected connection was going to change everything. Ethan woke the next morning with the mineral stone still resting on his nightstand. It caught the early light in a way that pulled him straight back to the diner, to Ava's shy smile and the quiet strength in her voice. He had gone on 20 blind dates with women who cared only about surface things, but last night felt different, real, grounded. It stayed with him long after he left the gravel lot. By noon, he found himself driving toward the old mining town again, telling himself it was only to see the area for potential projects. He knew that was not the truth, but it was easier to pretend. The closer he got, the more the air changed, thicker with dust, rougher around the edges, honest in a way that reminded him of Ava herself. He parked near the entrance of the mine, just as the workers were finishing a shift. The large metal doors slid open, and a small crowd emerged, covered in dirt, moving with the exhausted rhythm of people who gave everything they had each day. He scanned the group automatically, heart thudding faster when he spotted her. Ava walked out, helmet tucked under her arm, wiping coal dust from her cheeks. She looked surprised when she saw him, surprised, but not unhappy. "You came all the way back here?" she asked. Ethan nodded, trying to sound casual. "I was in the area. Thought I would check on that project the company mentioned last month." Ava glanced at his clean shirt and polished boots, and a tiny smile pulled at the corner of her mouth. "You do not look like someone who belongs near a mine." He laughed, more at himself than anything. "Trust me, I know." A small group of her co-workers walked by, giving Ava playful nudges and raising their eyebrows at Ethan. She rolled her eyes, but her cheeks flushed with a warm color that made him want to look longer than he should. "Do you have a few minutes?" he asked. "Maybe we could talk again." Ava hesitated only a moment before nodding. "Sure, there is a small hill behind the storage shed. Not pretty, but it is quiet." They walked together through the uneven gravel. The sun had started lowering, casting long shadows across the mining yard. Ava sat on a flat boulder and patted the spot beside her. Ethan joined her, feeling strangely nervous, as if he were the one trying to impress her. Ava unwrapped her lunchbox, pulling out a simple sandwich and half of a chocolate bar. She handed the chocolate to Ethan without hesitation. "You do not have to give me that," he said. "I know," she replied, "but sharing makes it taste better. At least that is what my mom always said." Ethan took it gently. "You talk about her a lot. She was the bravest person I knew, worked the mines until she could not anymore. But she made sure my brother and I never felt poor." Ava looked toward the dusty horizon. "When she passed, I promised myself I would take care of him the way she took care of us." Her sincerity struck him again, harder this time. In his world, people hid behind shiny walls and polished words. Ava hid nothing. "You must be exhausted," Ethan said softly. Ava shrugged, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Some days, but life is not about being comfortable. It is about being useful and taking care of people you love." Ethan looked down at his hands, feeling a quiet ache. He had spent years surrounded by luxury, avoiding vulnerability, avoiding loss. Hearing Ava speak made him realize how small his fears looked beside her courage. He wanted to tell her who he truly was. He wanted to tell her why he hid it, but he could not yet. She turned toward him. "Ethan, you seem like someone who carries a lot but says very little." He let out a long breath. "That is more accurate than you know." Ava smiled with that same grounded warmth he had felt last night. "Well, when you want to talk, I am here." The wind rustled through the dry brush around them. For a moment, the world felt stripped down to just truth and dust, and two people who had no reason to trust each other, but somehow did. When Ava stood up to return to the mine's office, Ethan followed her halfway before stopping. "Ava," he said, "can we meet again tomorrow?" She studied him for a long second, then nodded. "Yes, I would like that." And as she walked away, Ethan felt a new, almost startling clarity. This was no longer about blind dates or experiments or hiding behind a false identity. For the first time in a long time, he wanted to show up as a real man, because Ava deserved nothing less. Ethan returned to the mining town the next afternoon, this time with no excuse prepared, no script running through his head. The drive felt different today. Yesterday he came because he was curious. Today he came because something inside him needed to see Ava again, needed to feel the quiet steadiness she carried so naturally. He had spent years surrounded by people who smiled with their lips, but never with their eyes. Ava was the first person in a very long time who made him feel seen without asking for anything in return. When he arrived, the shift had already ended. Workers were walking toward the town's small row of shops, boots dragging, shoulders heavy from the long day. He spotted Ava near the convenience store, holding a bag of groceries and talking with an older man who appeared to be a retired miner. She smiled politely, listening to him with the same patience she had shown Ethan. When she noticed Ethan approaching, her face brightened in a way that made something in him settle. "You came back," she said. "I did," Ethan replied. "I wanted to." Ava handed the older man his change and wished him a good evening. Only then did she turn fully to Ethan, her expression softening. "My brother is at home studying," she said. "We can walk for a bit if you want. The weather is nice." They walked through the narrow road that curved behind the town. The mountains rose like dark silhouettes in the distance, and the sound of gravel under their steps filled the silence between them. It was comfortable, unforced, almost grounding. Ava was the first to speak. "You know, I was surprised yesterday. Not many people come back to this side of town unless they are dropping off supplies." Ethan smiled slightly. "Maybe I just wanted to see you again." Ava looked down, almost shy. "I am not used to people saying things like that. Most men do not want someone who comes home smelling like coal dust." "I do not mind," Ethan said. "It suits you. It means you work hard." Ava let out a small laugh. "That is one way to put it." They reached the hill overlooking the mine, the same place they sat the day before. Dust floated gently in the air, catching the orange glow of the sunset. Ava sat on the same flat boulder and tucked her jacket close around her. "Ethan," she said carefully, "you never talk about yourself. Not really. Sometimes it feels like you are speaking around your life instead of from it." He tensed, not because she was wrong, but because she was right. "I guess I am afraid of giving the wrong impression," he said. Ava tilted her head. "The wrong impression of what?" He looked out at the mine below them, the heavy machinery, the shifting lights, the lives shaped by hard work and harsher realities. Of who I am, he said quietly. Ava rested her elbows on her knees. Ethan, everyone carries something they are not ready to talk about. But you do not have to pretend with me. Not about anything. I like you because you are kind, not because of what you have or do not have. The words struck him in a place he usually guarded. No one had said anything close to that in years. Ethan let out a slow breath. Thank you. She nodded, as if the moment required no more than that. When they walked back toward town, Ava suddenly slowed and reached into her pocket. She pulled out a tiny mineral shard, smaller than yesterday's, but shimmering faintly in the fading light. This one is for today, she said. Another lucky piece. Ethan accepted it, feeling its uneven surface against his palm. If this keeps going, I will have an entire collection. Ava grinned. Maybe that is the point. They reached the small intersection leading to her house. Ava stopped, turning to him with calm certainty. Ethan, meet me again tomorrow? He did not hesitate. Yes, absolutely. Ava stepped onto the porch, pausing with her hand on the door. You are easy to talk to, she said softly. I hope you know that. As the porch light flickered on and Ava disappeared inside, Ethan stood alone under the dim street lamp, the new mineral shard glowing faintly in his hand. For the first time in a long while, the quiet did not feel empty. It felt promising. Ethan returned to the mining town the next day with a feeling he had not experienced in years. It was not excitement exactly. It was something steadier, something that felt like hope with its feet on the ground. Every day he spent with Ava made the noise in his head quieter. And for a man like him, silence was rare. He waited near the small grocery store where he had seen her before. The air carried the familiar smell of dust and warm asphalt. When Ava stepped out of the store with a bag of bread and canned soup, she spotted him immediately and shook her head with a laugh. You are becoming a regular around here, she said. Maybe your town is growing on me, Ethan replied. She motioned for him to walk with her, and they followed the same narrow road that curved toward the hill. Along the way, neighbors waved at Ava, offering small jokes about her new friend. She brushed them off with a blush, clearly not used to the attention. When they reached the hill, Ava set down the groceries and sat on the familiar boulder. Ethan sat beside her, waiting for her to speak, but this time, it was his turn to open up. Ava, he said slowly, you asked me yesterday why I avoid talking about myself. The truth is, I do not know how to talk about my life without making it sound complicated. Ava tilted her head, listening the way she always did, fully present, never rushing him. You do not have to tell me everything, she said. Just tell me something that feels real. He nodded, taking in her words. I used to think people only liked me for what I could give them, he said. Money makes relationships blurry. I started hiding parts of my life because I was afraid the wrong people would get close for the wrong reasons. Ava looked out toward the mine. I get that, she said gently. People judge me the moment I say I work underground. They think that makes me small. But I know who I am, and I am not embarrassed by it. Ethan watched her profile in the fading light. She was stronger than she knew. I envy that, he admitted. Ava smiled softly. Maybe you do not need to hide as much as you think. Maybe you just have not met the right people yet. Her words lingered in the air, warm and unforced. A moment later, she reached into her jacket pocket and handed him another mineral fragment, slightly larger than the others. This one is not for luck, she said. It is for trust. Ethan held the shard carefully. Are you sure you want to give this to me? I would not offer it if I did not mean it. The sky deepened to orange, then purple. They sat quietly, listening to the low hum of machinery from the mine below. For the first time since Ethan began hiding his real identity, he felt something shift inside him. Ava did not know who he truly was, but she saw him more clearly than anyone else had in a long time. As they walked back toward town, Ava stopped at her porch, turning to him one more time. Ethan, she said, you do not have to be perfect. Just be honest when you are ready. He nodded, holding the mineral shard tightly. I will, he said. I promise. Ava's smile was small but sincere. Then I will see you tomorrow. When she stepped inside and the porch light clicked off, Ethan remained in the quiet street, watching the dark windows of her home. The truth pressed heavily on his chest, and he knew the moment was coming when he would have to reveal everything. But for now, he held on to the only thing that mattered. Ava trusted him, and he was not ready to lose that. Ethan arrived the next afternoon earlier than usual, almost an hour before Ava's shift ended. He told himself he was just walking around, getting familiar with the town, observing the mine for future projects. But the truth was simple. He wanted to be near her, even if she did not know he was there yet. He stood by the fence near the entrance of the mine, watching workers emerge in groups. Their faces were streaked with dust, their shoulders heavy with fatigue. Eventually, Ava appeared, helmet under her arm, the usual smudge across her cheek, and that tired but determined look that seemed to define her. She spotted him instantly and walked over, curiosity in her eyes. "You are early today," she said. Ethan smiled. "I wanted to make sure I caught you before you got too busy." Ava let out a small laugh. "Busy with what? Today is laundry night and reheating leftovers. My life is not glamorous." "It is real," Ethan replied quietly. "I like that." Ava gave him a look he could not quite read. Soft, thoughtful, maybe even worried. "You seem different today," she said. "Quieter." He hesitated, glancing down at the mineral shard she had given him, now safely tucked in his jacket pocket. "I have been thinking," he admitted, "about trust, about what you said yesterday." Ava leaned against the fence, crossing her arms lightly. "You do not owe me anything, Ethan. If you want to talk, I am here. If not, that is all right too." But that was the problem. He did owe her. Not because she asked for anything, but because she deserved the truth. Ava lived her life with nothing to hide. She gave freely, trusted carefully, and worked honestly. And he was standing here pretending to be someone he was not. Before he could speak, a deep rumble echoed from the gravel lot. A black SUV rolled toward them, kicking dust into the air. The doors were tinted, and the tires far too polished for this place. Ava glanced at it, confused, but Ethan's stomach dropped. He knew that vehicle. It belonged to his corporate team. The SUV came to a stop, and before Ethan could react, his head of operations, Daniel Reed, stepped out. His suit jacket barely caught the dust before he turned toward Ethan with urgency. "Sir," Daniel called out, "we have an emergency at headquarters. The board meeting has been moved. They need you immediately." The words fell like stones. Ava froze. "Sir?" she repeated quietly, eyes shifting from Ethan to Daniel. Daniel frowned, noticing her for the first time. "My apologies, miss. I did not realize he was with someone." Ethan felt his lungs tighten. This was not how she was supposed to find out. Not here, not like this. Ava's expression shifted. Confusion first, then disbelief, then something far sharper. "Ethan," she whispered, "why did he call you sir?" Daniel stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Mr. Hale, we really must go. The investors are waiting." The final blow landed. Ava stepped back as if she had been physically hit. "Hale?" she repeated. "As in Hale Industries? The company trying to buy out half the land around this town?" Ethan reached out instinctively. "Ava, please, let me explain." Her voice cracked, pain slicing through every word. "You lied to me. You stood here for days, listening to me talk about my life, my family, my work, and you never said a word. Why?" Ethan felt everything inside him collapse. "Ava, I was going to tell you. I just needed time. I needed you to know me before you knew the rest." Ava shook her head fiercely. "No, you needed me to trust someone who was not real." Behind them, miners were slowing down, watching, sensing the tension. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, waiting. Ava stepped back again. "I told you honesty mattered to me. I told you I do not want transactions disguised as relationships. And you still hid everything." Ethan moved closer, voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you." "But you did," she said, tears shining in her eyes. "And that is the part you cannot take back." She turned away, walking toward the small road that led to her home, not once looking back. Ethan stood there, helpless, watching the woman who finally made him feel real disappear into the fading daylight. And for the first time in a long time, the man who had everything felt utterly, painfully empty. Ethan barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the look on Ava's face when she realized who he really was. Not angry, not jealous, just hurt. The kind of hurt that only comes from someone who trusted first, and he had broken that trust without meaning to, but that did not make it any less real. By morning, Ethan was sitting in his office at Hale Industries, surrounded by polished glass walls and the low hum of expensive technology. His team spoke to him about numbers, projections, acquisitions, investor confidence. None of it landed. His mind kept drifting back to the small mining town, the dusty roads, the sound of Ava's voice when she said he had lied. Daniel, standing near the door, cleared his throat. "Sir, the board wants a decision on the mining land purchase. The vote is scheduled for tomorrow." Ethan rubbed his temples. "Postpone it." Daniel blinked. "Sir, that is not advisable. The company expects—" "I said postpone it," Ethan repeated, his voice lower, heavier. "I need time." Daniel hesitated, then nodded and left the room. When the door closed, the silence felt suffocating. Ethan looked out over the city skyline, gleaming with the wealth he had spent his life building. But none of it felt like it mattered. Not compared to a woman who lived in a house smaller than his guest bathroom, but carried more honesty in her pocket than he had in his entire world. He stood abruptly and left the office. The drive back to the mining town felt longer this time. The roads seemed narrower. The sky seemed heavier. When he arrived, he found the late afternoon shift ending again. Workers streamed out of the mine, but Ava was not among them. He waited. 10 minutes, 20, still no sign of her. He approached one of the workers he recognized from earlier days. "Excuse me," Ethan said gently. "Do you know where Ava is?" The man wiped his forehead with a cloth. "She left early today, said she needed space." Those words twisted in Ethan's chest. "Do you know where she went?" The man pointed down the hill. "Probably the old overlook. She goes there when she wants to think." Ethan thanked him and walked toward the path behind the storage shed. The air grew colder as he climbed. When he reached the top, he found Ava sitting on the same boulder where they had shared their quiet conversations. Her back was turned, knees pulled to her chest, jacket wrapped tightly around her. "Ava," he said softly. She stiffened but did not turn. Ethan took a few careful steps forward. "Please let me talk." She spoke without looking at him. "I have nothing left to say, Ethan." "But I do," he said, "and I will not leave until you hear it." A long silence followed. Finally, Ava turned her head slightly, enough to show he had a chance. Ethan swallowed hard. "Ava, I hid who I was because I did not want my money to define everything again. I was tired of people looking at me and only seeing what I could give them. But by protecting myself, I hurt you, and that is the last thing I ever wanted." Ava stared ahead, her voice quiet. "You could have told me the truth. I would have respected that." "I know," Ethan said. "I was afraid, not of you, but of losing something before I even understood what it meant to me." Ava finally faced him fully. Her eyes were tired, red from crying earlier, but steady. "You should have trusted me." "I should have," Ethan said, "and I am sorry, truly." She looked down at her hands. "I do not care that you are wealthy. I care that you did not believe I could handle the truth." Ethan stepped closer, but not too close. "Ava, give me a chance to earn that trust back. Not by words, by action." Ava held his gaze for a long, searching moment. "Actions are the only things that matter," she said. Ethan nodded. "Then I will show you." She stood slowly, brushing dust off her jacket. "I do not know if I can forgive you yet, but I am listening." That small opening was more than Ethan deserved, and as the sun dipped behind the hills, casting gold light over the mine, he silently vowed that whatever he had to do to prove himself, he would do it, because losing Ava was no longer an option. Ethan knew that apologies were useless without something real behind them. Ava had said it herself. Actions were the only things that mattered. So he spent the next morning not in his glass office, not in meetings, not surrounded by shareholders discussing numbers, but driving straight to the mining town before sunrise. He stood outside the entrance of the mine, watching workers gather for their shift. Some of them recognized him from the scene with the black SUV. A few whispered, a few stared, but Ethan did not care. He was here for one reason. When the mine supervisor stepped out of the building, Ethan approached him directly. "Sir," Ethan said, "I want to review the plans for the land purchase. All of them. Every file." The supervisor blinked, caught completely off guard. You want to review them? Yourself? Yes, Ethan said firmly, and I want to speak with the workers, too. Within the hour, Ethan had every document laid out on a battered metal table inside the small office. Maps, contracts, reports, proposals. The original plan from Hale Industries would shut down half the mine within 6 months. The move made financial sense, but it would devastate the town. Families would lose income, students would leave school, homes would be abandoned. Ava's younger brother would be one of the many affected. Ethan stared at the papers, feeling the weight of every decision he had made while sitting comfortably behind a conference table miles away. Now he saw the cost, not numbers, lives. He made the decision before fear or hesitation could creep in. Cancel the acquisition, Ethan said to the supervisor. Completely. The supervisor's jaw dropped. Sir, are you sure? That goes against everything your board has been pushing. I am sure, Ethan replied. And we are going to restructure our proposal. We will invest in upgrading the mine. We will build a training center, a scholarship fund, a health program for workers, and a community center for their families. The supervisor slowly nodded, stunned silent. By late afternoon, the entire town had heard the news. People gathered outside the mine office, whispering and waiting. Ethan stepped outside to address them, something he had never done in his life. Public speaking was easy when it was business, but this time it was personal. I came here undercover, Ethan began, because I wanted to understand what life looks like without the walls money builds around you. Instead, I found people who work harder than anyone I have ever met, and I found someone who reminded me what integrity looks like. He did not say Ava's name, but the crowd understood. We are not shutting this mine down, Ethan continued. We are going to support it. A single clap broke through the silence, then another, then a wave of applause rolled across the crowd. Some workers shook his hand, others patted his shoulder. A few had tears in their eyes, but Ethan was not looking at them. He was looking past them, at Ava, standing a few yards away. She had arrived without him noticing, still wearing her work jacket, hands stuffed in her pockets, eyes wide with disbelief. Their eyes met. Ava walked closer, stopping only a few steps away. You did all of this? She asked quietly. Ethan nodded. Yes, and not for the company, for the people here, for you. Ava looked down, fighting the emotion threatening to rise. This means everything to us, she whispered. Ethan exhaled slowly. I wanted to show you that I can be someone you trust, someone who listens, someone real. Ava lifted her gaze, meeting his with a softness he had not seen since before the reveal. You did more than talk, she said. You changed something. Ethan stepped closer, his voice low and sincere. I meant it when I said I would prove myself. This is only the beginning. Ava did not answer right away, but she did something better. She reached out and gently placed her hand over his. Hope, for the first time since everything fell apart, finally felt possible again. Ethan returned to the mining town a few days later, not as a man hiding behind a false identity, and not as a distant CEO checking on a project, but simply as himself. The new plans had already begun moving through his company. The mine upgrades were approved. The training center was funded. The scholarship program was announced, and the community center had a name reserved for someone very special, though he had not told her yet. He found Ava at the Overlook, where so many of their quiet conversations had unfolded. She was sitting on the familiar boulder, her jacket pulled tight around her shoulders, staring out at the mine as if trying to understand how everything had changed so quickly. When she heard his footsteps, she did not look surprised, almost as if she had been waiting. Hey, she said softly. Hey, Ethan replied, taking the seat beside her. Ava looked out over the landscape. People are talking about what you did. Some of them cried, Ethan. They thought they were going to lose everything. They deserve stability, he said quietly, and they deserve someone who will fight for them. Ava turned to him, studying him with the same quiet intensity she always had. You did not have to do all of that. I know, he said, but I wanted to, for the workers, for this town, and for you. Ava looked down at her hands, the wind brushing her hair across her cheek. I wanted to be angry longer, she admitted. I told myself I should be, but then you showed up. not with excuses but with actions. Ethan felt something warm loosen in his chest. You once said that life is not about comfort, it is about being useful. You taught me that. Ava's eyes softened. You listened. I did, he said, because you were worth listening to. She reached into her pocket and pulled out another mineral shard, smooth, shimmering, polished by her thumb. She held it out to him. This one is not for luck, Ava said, and it is not for trust. It is for beginnings. Ethan took the shard carefully, feeling its weight. A beginning, he repeated. I would like that. Ava stepped closer, her voice warm and steady. Ethan, I forgive you. He closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the words settle deep, healing something he had been carrying for far too long. When he opened them, Ava was looking up at him with the same honesty that first drew him in. There, under the fading evening light, Ethan reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet pouch. Inside was a delicate necklace, a thin silver chain holding a tiny mount, shaped perfectly to hold the first mineral stone she ever gave him, a symbol woven from their first meeting to this moment. He held it out gently. It is not a proposal, he said softly. Not yet. This is a promise. A promise that I will stay honest, stay present, and stay real with you. Ava's breath caught as she accepted it. Ethan, it is beautiful. He stepped behind her, fastening the necklace around her neck. The stone caught the last rays of sunset and glowed faintly. Ava touched it, smiling. I guess this makes us official. Ethan laughed quietly, relief and joy blending into something unmistakably new. Yes, he said. I think it does. They stood together at the edge of the overlook, the mine below humming with life, the town behind them pulsing with renewed hope. For the first time since Ethan began this strange journey of hiding and revealing, everything felt aligned. Ava slipped her hand into his, and Ethan knew this was the moment that changed everything. Not the reveal, not the forgiveness, but the choice they made to walk forward together. A millionaire who hid too much, a miner girl who gave everything, and a love that found its way through honesty, action, and the quiet strength of two lives finally meeting in the middle.